Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 142, July 8th, 2022. Using universal energy towards reproductive empowerment. What ways can you access your wholeness into fertility? What energetic body and mind tips can support the journey? How can ease, de-stressing, and positivity become a normal practice? I always like to share a special guest. It's Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
And I'm going to read her about who she is in a moment, but I always feel like, how do I meet these people? I just feel like sometimes we find each other through Facebook land. Sometimes we're spying on each other in different ways. But I know I was on, I think Michelle reached out. I'm not sure how you discovered me, but
yeah, I did. I reached out.
We played tag. We played tag a lot for months about this day, and we're literally on different ends of the coast. She's in Florida, East Coast, Atlantic Ocean. I'm in California, West Coast, Pacific, but I'm familiar with the East Coast being from New Jersey. And so I was on the Wholesome Lotus Fertility podcast, and we just fell in love with each other. I'm just going to say it.
Yes, that's right.
We just had synergy, and we were just talking even before about really awesome things, and so we just, it just kind of, that's what happens sometimes. And so let me read here your who you are, and then we'll kind of jump in. Michelle Orviz is an acupuncturist, Ayurvedic practitioner, and certified hypnotherapist specializing in fertility health. Michelle was inspired to change her career from architect to acupuncture after having her own reproductive imbalances resolved by her acupuncturist. Her method of treatment encompasses not only herbs and acupuncture, but also incorporates diet, supplements, essential oils, and most importantly, the mind and how it influences conception. She helps women and couples both online as well as in person and is the host of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Yay! Thank you, Michelle, for being here.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me on. And yes, we had an instant synergy. I just feel like you're like the soul sister vibe, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, and I want to hear, I know you said here in your kind of bio that you found your own reproductive imbalances resolved through acupuncture, and then I love this, you're like an architecture for the body of energy, right? And the body, mind, and spirit architecture, right? Yeah, because you think about like building, it's just it's very overlapping to me. But what was it that really brought that healing to you? I'm curious.
Well, first of all, that's so insightful. I never thought about that, so thank you for that. And I totally agree. There are so many different parts, and nothing should be ignored because it's like the synergy within our body. And what happened was at the time I was so out of whack that I had no like synergy. My flow was not really flowing. I basically would have like 2 months or 3 months between my periods. I had hormonal imbalances that I knew just based on my skin, hair loss, moods, like you name it, PMS, menstrual pains. So now looking back, I could see that. Back then I thought, okay, this is just normal. And even if it wasn't, I didn't really care. I just wanted to go out and have fun. Like I was young. I didn't think about anything. But it was something on my mind, and it was on my mom's mind because when I was 17, she took me to the OB. I was not sexually active at the time, but was given the birth control pill to regulate my period, and it never made sense to me. I never really bought into it. I didn't understand why, and I remember asking the doctor, like, why are you giving me these birth control pills? And they said, well, if you take these, you're going to get your period once a month. And I go, yeah, but what happens when I get off? Because I was like, I'm going in there, I'm going to get a cure, I'll come out, and I'll know, I'll have answers. And the guy didn't give me answers, and I wasn't really buying his answer. He was basically saying, if you get off, you're going to go back to what you are now. And I'm like, well, how's that, like, supposed to help? Like, it made no sense. But I took it anyway because I was just curious. I was like, oh, how do these work? What is it going to do? Because he did say it's going to make your period easier. It's going to make your skin better. I was like, all right, let me try. But I didn't feel right. I think intuitively we all have that kind of intuition within us, like, our bodies tell us, like, this doesn't feel totally aligned. So luckily, I did listen to that, and I took breaks. So I didn't always stay with the birth control all the time. Plus, I was a little irresponsible and forgetful, so it wasn't something that I can really continue all the time. And so years later, I remember traveling, deciding, like, I actually lived in the West Coast. So I did have also experience on the West Coast. It was great. Lived there for a couple of years and then decided to move back to the East Coast. And I sold my car, used that money to travel in Europe and backpack. And the whole time I was away about like 3 months. And the whole time I was away, I didn't get my period. And I came back and I was like, Mom, I was telling my mom, like, what do I do? Like, I can't go to a regular doctor. They're not going to really give me a solution. This isn't normal. I was already 24 at the time, and I was like, I need to fix this. Something's not right. You know, like, I need to fix this. This isn't normal. And I think by then I was like, okay, something's got to give. Like, I got to do something. So she happened to hear about an acupuncturist, and he happened to be actually from China, and in China, they do Western and Eastern medicine. He happened to also specialize in gynecology. So that was kind of an interesting thing that we weren't necessarily looking for. We just heard about his name. And he was a gift, really a gift that came to me. And I remember during my travels, I actually went to Cuba. This is kind of something that I haven't mentioned before, not on my podcast, but it's very interesting because I remember going to Cuba. And I think I went, I don't know, yeah, it was before meeting him. And in Cuba, I had like some psychic person or Santeria or somebody come and tell me that I would meet an old person that's going to help you. And this is kind of an odd memory that just kind of came to me, but there's no coincidence. I'm talking to you, Kelly. So,
yeah.
You pulled it out of me. And it's weird that it never came out. But I remember him saying that. He said, you're going to meet an old man that's going to help you. And I remember I kept thinking about it. I was like, maybe it's Dr. Lee, you know, like. So, yeah, he helped me. Not only did he help me, but he changed the trajectory of my life. Like, so basically I went to him. He got me my period. I came home. I got my period. He gave me herbs. He told me a woman's period is really important for her health. With a heavy Chinese accent, he's like the Dalai Lama, the sweetest guy ever. You just want to kiss his cheek. And I come home, I took the herbs. It was like old school in a bag where I had to boil them. And I was like, I'm going to this guy every single week. I'm going to him all the time. And what was interesting is I couldn't go right away. I went in once, but I was also looking for a job, and I finally found a job in the city. So I took a little off, but before I went back to see him, I got my period again, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm going like all the time. Like, this guy is amazing. I don't know like what this is, but this is crazy. It was mind blowing. And that's when I was like, wow, I just love it. And so little by little, what happens is once you start to, we talked about synergy, once you start to address one area and that starts to become into balance in your life, it starts to kind of unlock all these keys. It's sort of a trickle-down effect. And then, of course, I worked a couple of years in architecture again still, but I knew, you know what, I need to do something else. There's something else calling me. And it was as if that part of me really awoken to alignment. So not just was my cycle getting more aligned, but it was like mentally too. And I also found more flow. I wasn't as frustrated at work. Like, things would roll off my back way more easily than they ever have. So it's just really interesting how, like, on so many levels I felt better. My skin cleared up. And then eventually I did listen to my inner voice, and I eventually went back to school for Ayurveda. Met my husband. It was just like everything opened up. It's crazy. It sounds almost too good to be true, but it literally was, and it aligned so much so that I think the universe is calling me to do this for a path. And then I went back to school. So I went first to Ayurveda. We moved to Florida. After my husband finished his residency, we moved to Florida. I went back to school to study Ayurveda. And then after that, we had our kids, which I thank Dr. Lee for, because for sure I probably wasn't even ovulating. I mean, I would have been a whole case. So basically, because of Dr. Lee, because I was regulated, I was easily able to conceive, and then had 2 kids. I painted at home and sold my art. That was like what I did at the time. I didn't really want to work with people while the kids were little. Eventually, the kids went back to school. I went to school, and I went back to school. I enrolled myself back to study acupuncture. And then now I have an in-person business, an online business where I work with people online as well with fertility coaching, and in-person doing acupuncture. And really my main focus is fertility. I do also treat pregnant women as well, because once they do get pregnant, I do support the pregnancy. And so that's kind of a natural tendency that my business went into. And I love it. I love working with women. And if we want to talk kind of like the energetics and the spirituality, I really do feel that I work very strongly with the energy of Guan Yin. She's almost like the she Buddha, the female Buddha, the goddess of fertility, the goddess of compassion. And I do feel her inspiring my work.
Oh, I love all that. And I think what you were sharing was so meaningful about the journey. Like, we're kind of like, when we don't think of the fertility journey when we're younger, right? Because you're like, okay, I just want to do this, or I'm not. And then, I know, like with me, I had my children in my 30s, mostly because I discovered acupuncture myself. Through me, it was through sickness, and I was 25. And my gosh, it's been over 20 years. I've been in and out of acupuncture, more now consistent, but so amazing. And it just, I feel like I love the idea of that. It's really kind of reminding the body how to heal. It's not really doing anything against it. Yeah. And that's where I feel like I love that Eastern over Western. And of course, with Western ideas, it is good for immediate stuff, with broken bones and stitches, and it's amazing surgeries, but it feels like it's become everything, right? It even has the word conventional medicine, and I don't believe in the word alternative medicine. I know that they put that, in that umbrella, but I'm like, it's not alternative. It's real medicine. Right. To me, it feels more conventional.
It's original.
But I've also,
think about it.
Yeah, that's true too, actually. That's a really good point. It is really. How old is it? Over 1,000? More than that? How old?
They say over 3,000 years, but it was also at the time there was a lot of book burning between that time, so they think it's older. But some of the history was actually destroyed. So really, even what we have is just a percentage of what was. There's way more. Yeah. But if you think about it, nature agrees, because it never goes out of style. So long as nature is nature, that's what Chinese medicine formed, or that's the foundation of it. It works with herbs and what grows on, through the earth. So, and it has DNA. Herbs have DNA. It connects with our human DNA. There's a communication. So this is, it really draws upon the intelligence of nature. You cannot mess with nature. You cannot compete with nature,
I love that you shared that, because I'm studying right now. Nobody knows this yet, but it's a kind of a hobby, but a curiosity with immunity and healing cancers, is mushrooms. And mushrooms is the same. The fungus of the mushrooms, it speaks to us underneath our feet. It's everywhere. It's in the air. It's in spores. And it's so fascinating. And I'm going, okay, of course you could speak to I was the kid that ate mushrooms, and people thought I was weird. But what I realized as an adult, and I love mushrooms and powders, and is that it always spoke to me on that DNA level, like it's just working to heal me. And herbal medicine, I feel like, is today's medicine by far. I mean, it's quite incredible. And you're more of a specialist, and I'm more of a self-learner. I don't have any degrees in herbology or anything, but it's just so fascinating to me, and it's fun to apply it to my body and then even to my children. And it's like, I always feel like Dr. Mom first and then other people next. Doctor acupuncture, doctor chiropractor, even Western doctor, they're always second, not first, right?
Well, here's the thing. You look back at all the medicine women, they didn't have degrees. They just had that curiosity, and they were drawn to it. And they were like legit medicine women, and a lot of it is using that intuition, coming back to our roots. And so all these degree things, that's more of a modern thing.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like the midwife. Like, this is the midwife in the village because she's helped birth like everybody's baby, but she doesn't have degrees and stuff. She doesn't, but she's just as valuable, intuitive, and I do feel like that's a whole other podcast. That is the future. And I've always learned many years ago, and I've said this, and I feel like it's a little bit more acceptable now, but I was like, when I had body work or things done with people, I was like, I don't care if they have 1,000,000 degrees or no degrees, if their energy is good and there's a deep wisdom in them to do the work, because I worked with a body worker who was never trained, and I liked him more for that, because he wasn't clouded. He wasn't being scared to massage certain parts of my body, like upper breast plates, oh, don't touch that. It's, but it's like, but what if my breast plates are hurting because of my shoulder and my back? Let's not make it weird. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind, and I'm like, but I remember like going to people that were trained, and I was like, I almost walked away feeling disappointed and negative energy. Not to say that training makes you bad, but just some of these people, I was like, what am I doing? And I realized, oh, you like to go underneath and go and like, okay, are you doing this? What's the connection? And so it is very intuitive. It's like you said, that's the piece I feel like that is future of all kinds of things, right? Even in fertility, there's so many different levels of people's coaching and therapies and things, but you want to resonate no matter how many degrees people have. What is the story they bring? Your personal story is really the work, and how it it saved you and brought you, because you're right. Like, let's talk about even these women that are struggling with fertility. I wonder, and you probably do more of an intake, like, hey, let's go back in history. Oh yeah, I was on birth control for like 5+ years, or I never, and it's like, oh, but now your body is like in that rhythm. It's like, right? It's like, what happens? It's like when you go for birth control, some people think, I'm off birth control, I should get pregnant, but they're not. But you could probably speak more about that.
Well, think about it. It's, a lot of this stuff is so logical, because in the body, the hormones act a certain way.
Wait, I can't hear you. Sounds like you're
hormones or give them or program like your body with hormones that are not supposed to be there in the first place. You're basically confusing the body's synergy.
Oh, yes.
And then the body's like, what? What's going on here? This isn't normal. I don't usually deal with this. Okay, well, let me. What happens is the body will always respond with trying to create balance and homeostasis. So, like, it's like a thermostat. It's set to a certain level. And a thermostat, when you have the air conditioning on, if the heat rises up of a certain point, it'll turn on to get it to a state, a balance, a certain type of level that's supposed to be normal for the body. And when you mess with that level, it confuses the body, and then it resets to a new level.
And I know this gets really confusing. When you say that, I'm thinking about a lot of these women I've supported with IVF. And I tell them straight up, here's the deal. Like, some are in deep in the IVF journey, some are kind of coming out of it. And I say, no matter what, your body, you're confusing your body to do certain things. And your reaction to your body is not going to be the same as someone else's, right? Because some people feel like they have a bad experience with progesterone or estrogen, or it's too much, it's too little. And I always tell people, and your nervous system gets confused too. Like, what's happening? We don't know. But I said, but that's okay, because that's my support, is the emotional, spiritual part. It's like, you have to make a level of peace with it, but you also have to listen. Is this to the advantage? Is this, but it's a very tricky area, I feel, right? Because some women will be very depleted. Yeah.
Well, the good news is that even though the body can get confused, the body is really resilient. It's
nice.
hardwired to self-heal. It's hardwired to adapt. So when you remove those obstacles and remove the confusion, it will get back to where it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah, okay, that's comforting because I've seen that. I've seen women, a few women throughout the years, maybe more than a few, where they were like, "We're going through another IVF round and a retrieval, and I have no follicles." And I'm like, okay, and they're upset. They're like in tears. And I said, okay, your body, the energy of your body is saying, I'm done. I will grow these follicles, but you need to give me a damn break. Give me a break. And I do see, I say super, super de-stressing. And what happens? They do come back. But sometimes with the over-forcing it, it's like, you know, it's confusing, right? Because there's this mystery in the body, like something's happening, organs are doing something. They're, you know, but we don't always have to know that we're breathing and our heart's beating. Can you imagine if we were like, is our heart beating? Am I breathing? There's another intelligence happening, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it really does have an intelligence, you know. I missed you for a second, though. You broke up a little bit.
Yeah, it was breaking up a little bit before, too. My phone is still, but who knows? Who knows how that works? No, I don't remember what I just said. Because my mind's bouncing, going, okay, you work with women fertility, and I'm so curious about essential oils. I don't think we ever talked about that, but what are like some, like, how do you do that? Like, is it on the body, and what are great fertility oils that you would use? What comes to your mind? I'm so curious.
Well, it depends. I'm also hesitant about saying, because sometimes they can, like, not everything's meant for everybody, and they're like herbs almost. So depending on the person, but like, for example, you know, for people who have like fibroids or a lot of stagnation or maybe even endometriosis, you might want things like frankincense and myrrh, which move the blood. They act as really strong blood movers. And clary sage is really good for balancing hormones, but you don't want to use it. It's actually contraindicated for pregnancy, so you have to be very careful. Chamomile, lavender, things like that can be really good at easing the mind. And when you do that in general, like when you get yourself to a calm state, your hormones do balance a little better. It lowers cortisol. And keep in mind, you do want some healthy cortisol. It's not like a bad hormone. It's actually something that we need, especially when we first wake up. But you don't want this chronic cortisol and chronic state, you know, in our body of stress. So having something towards the end of the day that calms you, it puts you like ready for sleep, is really good. So it kind of, in an indirect way, can help with the hormones depending on what the essential oils do, and also depending on what you need. Sometimes rosemary used on the scalp actually helps the brain health, you know, and circulation. And that is really good because if you think about where the hormones start, usually the brain comes first. The brain, the HPA aspect, that's where everything trickles down from. So you could definitely utilize essential oils in a lot of different ways, depending on what the person needs, you know, because what is it like that's getting in the way of that balance?
Yeah. Gosh, I love all those oils. I'm like, you're inspiring me. I'm going, oh, I have rosemary. Maybe I have to rub it in my head if I feel mental. I have oils next to me. I'm like putting them on, smelling them. Like, oh yeah, oils. I love how you can.
You could use what I love is because like, rosemary is so stimulating. But if you could pair that up with something like lavender or chamomile, and it's kind of like stimulating the calm. It's kind of that calm alert. It's like the perfect harmony in marriage. Is the calm alert.
Oh, I love that. Blends. I love the blending it together for sure. And I remember, you're making me remember, like years ago, I don't think a lot of people I've gotten like massage from, most of them don't use essential oils. I guess it's a very specific area. And this woman, she was just dripping them on my spine, and I was just in like paradise, really. I was like, I smell amazing. And it just was so nourishing. Oh, it was so nice, but I don't know. I don't see. Oh, you know why I don't see a lot of people doing it? Probably because with the pandemic, everybody went underground for a while. People are still emerging. Yeah. Yeah, that
totally.
makes sense.
A lot of things are like virtual. Well, they can't do virtual.
Yeah, you
massage.
can't do virtual oils, right?
Nope.
The future.
No, it's like who knows, maybe AI will.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. No robotized people. But I really would love to hear. Yeah, oh my gosh. To go, I would, we're talking about the fertility journey and the oils, like all the calm and ease, and I feel like, de-stressing, but I'd love to hear more about hypnosis, and I'm sure others that are tuning in. Like, how does that look? Like, somebody's on a fertility journey, like you're working with probably your voice and certain things you say. How does that work? I've had hypnosis one time, a long time ago.
It works pretty amazingly. Well, what happens is basically, and I remember at the time that I was doing the acupuncture first and regulating my cycle, I was also reading an amazing book, and it changed my life. It's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And basically what it says is it really takes the mind into two different parts, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. So you got these two things, right? Typically we have access to the conscious mind. But the habits and everything that really programs our beliefs that are so deep-rooted, they live in the subconscious mind. The reason why it's so hard to change them is because it's not really so easy to access that subconscious mind. And there's a reason for it. It's actually a safety thing. You don't want to access it and change it and mold it that easily, because it's something that is almost like being able to access like the hardware, like basically what it's like going into your computer and trying to change the code and not knowing what you're doing. So you don't want to just be able to do that, because you could throw things off and really mess with like your nature. But you can actually access it, and you can create certain new habits with certain things. And one of them is by repetition. By repeating something over and over again, like affirmations or something that you just constantly do in repetition, eventually it becomes like stored in the background. Brain takes it as like, okay, so this is a new habit, this is a new behavior that we're going to do now. So let's do this. It's almost like when you're seeing a car driving on a dirt road and they keep going the same direction, over time the tires will go into these grooves. It'll start to make grooves. And that's pretty much how the brain works. And then to change that direction is going to be difficult, because the grooves kind of keep you in one direction. So you have to do it a couple of times. In the beginning, the brain will resist, but over time it will start to accept this new behavior. And it's just like us humans. We start to get used to new people. Like in the beginning, we're a little like, oh, who is this? And do I like them? Do I not? And then over time, the more you see a face, the more you just start to like them, or it feels familiar. So it's pretty much the same thing. What's amazing is that all those patterns that we can see in life and we can see in so many different ways, they repeat themselves in everything. So it's a familiar pattern and way of life and way of nature that reflects not just in our life, but it reflects in our minds and in our bodies as well. So what hypnosis does is it actually puts your conscious mind, which is kind of like the guard, at ease, in a place of trust. And typically you should have a place of trust with your hypnotist or hypnotherapist, obviously, because you don't want, you want to know what they're going to suggest. You want to agree upon that, what's going into my subconscious mind. And it is something that you want to repeat a lot. Typically the way I do it is I create audios, hypnosis audios, and I have people do it over and over again. So when you do that, you're kind of like doing this habitual. Yeah. And then you're kind of that, and that's how, like with practice, it really starts to get in there. So basically what you're doing is you start off with something called an induction, and that puts your conscious mind at ease so that the guard almost comes down. And it's not going to fully come down, which is why you need to do repetition. And that's, again, a safety mechanism. But it will go down, and then when it does, you're able to insert suggestions into the subconscious mind. And that's when the subconscious mind will receive it. So you can start saying, you know, your body's healthy, your hormones are balanced, you're ovulating, and then you start to really believe that about yourself. And when you had talked about like how to that, like having hypnosis in the fertility journey, well, if you think about the fertility journey as it is, what do people deal with, like on a day-to-day basis? They go to doctors, they get suggestions a lot of times. If the doctor doesn't believe that food can make a difference and that the body is resilient, they will say basically, this is your condition, end of story. You cannot get pregnant on your own. You need ART treatments, IUI, IVF, like that's, you have no eggs or you have very little eggs. And that's literally what people, whether it's exactly how the doctor says it, but that's usually how they receive it. And they come back defeated. Why? Because all of a sudden they just adopted a new belief about themselves, and they believe it because the person in front of them went to school, studied this, and knows what they're doing, and they have a bunch of like initials behind their names. Now, the reality of this is, and this is based on what I see, is no, these people are trained from a certain perspective. Nobody knows everything. Nobody sees the full 100% picture. They're trained from a certain perspective. And they're also used to approaching it in a certain way. Their way of doing this, and they do this over and over again, okay, so that's their habit, that's their reality, that's what their subconscious mind sees. Because what you look for over time, that's what you see, is how many eggs do we have, how many can we fertilize, is this person right for IVF, or is it, you know, that's really what they look for, and that's the reality. Does that mean that that's the end-all, be-all, and that's the only way things can happen? No. And I've seen it so many times. I've had people that were told there's no way you can get pregnant on your own. You're too old, your eggs are too old, whatever it is. And they do. They get pregnant not just once.
I know.
Twice.
Isn't that great? We need to celebrate that and talk about that, because I like what you said. I mean, that was really fascinating. Let me just ask one thing. I just looked down the line here. The power of your subconscious mind. Is it Joseph Murray? Is that who that is?
Yeah, Joseph Murphy.
Okay.
And
Murphy, sorry. Okay.
Life-changing book. It's
it was just really, I see it's on Kindle. It looks like it's highly affordable, or you can get paperback. But I just want to throw that out there in case someone's curious. And I know the mindset piece is big, just even outside of fertility, right? It's just a really big part, and what you're saying about the subconscious. But even, you know, again, I've talked about this more outwardly and even in private spaces. It's like that doctor, that person you're hiring, for what they know under what they've seen, it doesn't, like you said, make it a be-all, end-all, is can be very subconsciously damaging to people, and that's scary. And I've seen people go, well, I have these numbers or these hormone numbers or this, and now I'm doomed, and that's it, I'm not going to have a baby, where I've seen people with lower numbers than that have babies, so I'm like, oh, wait a minute. But it is important when that information is received, and I warn people about that too. I was
absolutely.
You know, you've seen it, I've seen it, one ovary, endometriosis, you know, like there's cancers even, you know, healing from all cancers. It's like, well, then how are they conceiving if it's not possible? And so.
Well, I'll tell you this. One of the ways you can hypnotize somebody is when you're a voice of authority, because when you're young, and actually Bruce Lipton talks about this a lot. He talks about how from age 0 to 7, we're basically walking hypnosis patients who basically can get hypnotized. And when we see somebody as an authority figure, it brings us back into that state, like parental or, you know, somebody that's like. And so they're basically hypnotizing us in a sense, if we allow them. Doesn't have to be. But they're basically hypnotizing with their opinion. They're not God.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that. That's a really good point, is to look at it from that space. It's very powerful. And I know from my own energetic space, I can see things, and I know that when we're speaking about things, we're not just really speaking words. There's an energetic magnetism for some people, and of course some areas are very triggering, right? We have our triggers, and I do feel like, you know, I know when I'm sharing my words and the work that I do, I have to be very, very self-aware, heart-aware of how that's exchanged and what the interpretation is of people, right? And I teach a lot of that, even through my school, my academy, to train these spirit baby intuitives to use the right language. And if you don't know, or if something comes off a certain way, you have to go into deeper explanation, because some people, they'll create a different story around their experience, because it's their experience in their body. And definitely fertility specialists, I've heard horror stories, and I'm sure you have too, and I've heard great stories too. Or, people just trying to figure it out. But I like how you shared, it's like the hypnotism, the authority of and your body just may go automatically into that space. And it sounds really encouraging too to use hypnosis. When you were talking about it, I suddenly remembered, this is kind of funny. I went to it over here, I think it's in California, Tarzana, a hypnosis school for one of the students where, I don't even know if I paid or if it was volunteer. And this guy was really cool, but I swear to you, I'm totally not lying. He fell asleep in our sessions, and he denied it. And I was literally looking at him going, he's snoring. And he's like, no, I'm okay. I'm like, and I was like, in my head, I'm like laughing hysterical, like, should I run out of this room right now? Or should I just keep going and go, okay? And he's like, no. But he's a really nice guy. And I think I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, because younger Kelly was more like, all right, maybe I'll just do it. Kelly today would say, dude, you're sleeping. Why are you sleeping? I have more oomph after the pandemic has pushed this strong, fiery, empowered lady to just be more honest, not skate around it like, oh, this is awkward. You know how you're like, oh, this is awkward. Should I say something? Should I not? Like that whole story.
Right,
but now
exactly.
I'm like, I have no filters anymore. I would just be like, oh, are you? Yeah, I don't have any filters anymore. I'm like, oh, I kind of like it. So I got to be careful if I hang out with closed-minded people. I don't want to start a fight, but I have it just comes out of my mouth. I can't control it. It's called the authentic gene. Yeah, the authentic gene. I can't. Maybe because I've been suppressing things for way too long, and now I just want to have my own opinion to the party. Really, that's really what it is. It's my own opinion to the party.
Exactly, and your truth, right?
We all deserve to be a part of that. But I laugh about it now because it's kind of fun. I'm like, did I just say that? And I just laugh.
Wait a second.
We laugh.
Yeah. My mouth?
Yeah. So it's again, having that, that hypnosis part, it just sounds dreamy and nice. And I know that you offer, and I want to go into I want you to share. I know you offer so many amazing things, and your podcast is so cool. You have to share that with everybody, and I think everyone's going to love it. And any upcoming events that are happening, or just, and your website and ways to contact you, whatever your social media outlets are. And people are going to be able to see it as well, but I'd like you to talk about it too.
Yeah, so I do have actually a membership for the hypnosis audios, and it has not just hypnosis audios specifically for fertility, but it also has lots of mindset tools, including some fertility yoga, different ways to help you sleep, really just all mind-related tools, plus the hypnosis library, which people can listen to for things like hormone balance, ovulation, egg quality, uterine lining, libido, food, finding the right choices of food, and that kind of thing. And I don't know, I could send you the link and you can put it maybe in the notes, but I'll send you the link. And also my website's basically michelleorbitz.com, and people can find everything through there. It's like my hub. And my social media, I'm a lot on Instagram. I love to share a lot of tips for fertility. It's a lot of fun, and it's kind of like a creative outlet. It's my handle's at The Wholesome Lotus Fertility, and the podcast is The Wholesome Fertility Podcast, where I had Kelly on. We had an amazing conversation, and I actually got some great feedback from my patients, by the way, for our episode.
Oh, nice. Yeah. They came and saw me.
My patients are obsessed with spirit babies. They love it.
I love it. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's Thank you so much. Yes. Is that all your share? You're good? Okay.
All my stuff.
I had more to share. I know. I have a list. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing all this. This is awesome. And I know people will tune in and enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me. It's always fun talking to you. It's I feel like I'm talking to my buddy.
I know. Absolutely. And I want to thank everybody for joining episode 142, Using Universal Energy Towards Reproductive Empowerment. And if you like my podcast, please subscribe, leave reviews, and you can also join my newsletter. I have right now tips on Spirit Baby communication. You have a little free video for signing up. I also have a book out. It's a journal, Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby journal, and of course now, hot off the press, Spirit Baby Oracle cards, Soul Answers from Spirit Baby are now available. And here we go, more for that.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.